Hi, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Transistance. Tonight, we are doing a panel on drag. Now, this was sort of a shortened timeline for getting things together to fit into this open slot here on the Transgender Show night. And that has affected things. We have two of our guests that have joined us tonight, so I think it's just going to be the three of us. Genevieve, she's her name is over to my left there, but she's not going to be able to join us. We just received news that a bill was put forth in West Virginia, making it a felony to be trans in public. So we'll be covering that on the regular episode of the Monday Transistance show. But Genevieve was is emotionally struggling with that, and has requested to take the night off. So she won't be joining us. This happened last minute, and like I said, we had two guests out of the four join us here tonight. So there are some things in the setup of the show that aren't really quite the way I would like it. So I'll be working on things throughout. So please forgive our dust as I'm moving things around and getting things set up. But let's go ahead and bring on our guests for tonight. We have with us Patty and Pam. And I'll let both of you introduce yourselves. Why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit about yourself, Pam?
Hello, my name is Pam Cakez. I am 25 years old. I am a drag queen here in Southern California, and I focus on producing shows for our trans and POC drag performers.
Wonderful. And Patty, aka Lady Kakes Monroe.
Hey, so I'm Lady Cakes. I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I've been performing for about 12 years. And I am what they call sometimes a diva drag queen, although I just consider myself a regular drag queen because I still wear hip pads and do all the tights and stuff like all the other girls. So that's it.
Special delivery there. I love it.
Yeah, sorry.
No, all good, all good. I am, like I said, I'm going to be doing 7 things at once for a few minutes here until we get into things a little bit. But I want to give a shout out to everybody in chat. Thank you so much for being here and supporting this special show. We have covered, we began Transistance early last year, and since then we've covered stories of vandalized shops that were hosting drag shows, claims of gender ideology agenda aimed at making kids transgender, and armed terrorists protesting outside of drag venues and even outside of a church. So we've covered the gamut in horrible news stories around drag and this very negative sentiment that's going on out there, and a lot of rhetoric and lies about this intention of it and all of these things. So we brought some folks together for this first initial panel. We'll be doing more of these because there'll be a lot to dive into and a lot of different perspectives to get. But we wanted to get this started and talk with some performers about how this rhetoric, how these laws, how the different things are actually affecting their lives and their livelihood. So let's start off with a softball. How did you get into drag, and how long have you been performing? Let's again start with Pam.
I started getting into drag before I even knew it was called drag. I would always love to see performers on stage. And when I started performing, I started doing the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and it kind of just never left. So I'm about 6 years and I'm loving it.
And Patty?
I started about 12 years ago, and I just started as an HIV tester for the local Center for Equality, and they said that they were doing a fundraiser where they were hiring or they were asking all these females to do drag for the first time. And I thought that, well, this is my only opportunity I'll ever get. Flash forward to 12 years later, and I haven't stopped. Like Pam said, you just kind of get addicted. Um, I I started with that show, and from that point on, I mean, there weren't really any female uh, drag artists that weren't kings at the time in Arkansas. I mean, we had female performers, but they were all drag kings. There weren't any divas, and now there are several, and I'm just really proud that I was able to be in that first class of lady drag performers here in Arkansas.
Nice. And what was the main focus of that show? Like, why was it so
It
important for them
was
to
to
have women?
raise money for the center that and for the HIV testing program specifically that I was working for and that I still work for. That's where I just came from.
Hmm. So you mentioned you're in Arkansas, and Pam, you're in an area in Southern California. Do you all stay pretty close in your performance to that home base, or do you venture out far?
I personally, I stay local and I go far. I do both. So I'm very lucky that I'm close to like the bigger cities like Santa Barbara and Los Angeles, so I can kind of go back and forth between there and go to Ventura,
Hmm.
which is kind of nice, being so, well versed in getting around.
Do you make it as far out as Vegas ever?
Yeah, I just got back from Vegas this weekend actually. I do like the outer cities like Palm Springs and San Luis Obispo whenever I get the chance to, really.
Hmm. And for you, have you found that most of those are pretty liberal areas? Like the areas you're at, you feel safe being there, and you haven't had any issues yet?
I personally have felt safe, like, but I know of situations like, for example, in like Luis Obispo, where the drag isn't as saturated and the people aren't as diverse, so they're not used to seeing drag performers of any kind, let alone like a standard drag performer.
Hmm.
Um, Anything more than a performer that isn't a woman or who isn't their gender on the stage is kind of out of whack for them. So when they see drag, they like it, but some of them don't like it. So it's like a half and half.
And what about for you, Patty?
I um I I live in kind of the northern part of Arkansas, and so it kind of across into the Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri. But I pretty much stay like either within Arkansas or within that region of um, lower Oklahoma, lower Missouri, upper Arkansas. And then I sometimes make it down to like Little Rock, Hot Springs, places like that. But it's harder for, I think, female drag queens to travel a lot further than, I mean, I know that personally I get asked to do a lot more because of the area in which I'm in, which is
Mhm.
really nice. But there are some girls who are in just a state away or in Missouri and stuff, and they really don't get that many opportunities because uh, there's not very many opportunities for the regular drag queens, so there's less opportunities even for divas up in those areas.
Hmm.
So I feel pretty lucky. I get to move around for my type of drag a lot more than most.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Excuse me. Why is drag important to you? Why is it something that you still do so consistently, Pam?
Drag is important to me because it gives me passion for creativity and it lets me have a platform to help people in like the easiest way I think is possible, whether it's through entertainment, laughing, charity, funding. I just love to have a passion project and to be a performer and to be on stage, and again to provide a platform for other people to be on stage that may not get opportunities or have the chance to. roam around as much.
Hmm. And what is it specifically about drag, about that the art of that performance that you feel is important to have out there?
I feel like it's the message that performers can send through, whether it be political, personal, or funny. You know, it doesn't have to be always so serious. It can always be something funny, or it can be serious and really affect people. And that's kind of what I love to do in performance, is spread a message to people.
Hmm.
Make me quit licking.
How about you, Patty?
Um, well, I guess I continue to do this after all these. I mean, it's it is a passion. It is a venue for creativity, like Pam said. I think that it creates opportunities to be known in your community, to give a voice to the voiceless sometimes. Sometimes it helps you with platforms that are, dear to your hearts, that you can, as a entertainer, you can go out there and sometimes I do things that are comedy, and sometimes I do things that are political, even because of where I'm at, I guess, in the middle of the country. It's sometimes fun to go out there and make a pinata of Trump or something and beat it while on stage. It's kind of fun. And I know it's some people are into it and some aren't, but I think that for me, the expression of my creative side is the thing that drives me to stay in it. I need that ability to be creative and to show out in front of people.
Oh, sorry. I can't use my keys yet. I have all my stuff usually set up with hotkeys, and I forgot that I haven't set those yet. So I am in describing that I lost my question. So we'll just move on. Have you noticed any animosity before we get into the legislation and the sort of greater world view on what's happening with transgender and LGBT in general? From your experience through your years doing drag, have you noticed within the community animosity towards the trans community?
I definitely have, personally. I am not trans, so I see, I feel like people try to like make fun of or cause animosity towards trans people with me, and it's kind of weird because I don't get that. Like, gay people do it too, like straight people do it. It's kind of weird because maybe it's an ignorance issue, or maybe it's something that they're not comfortable with. Um, and I see it a lot in the community, and in in performing. People sometimes won't even book trans people just because of X, Y, or Z. Like, it's honestly, it's a weird energy, and I don't feel like it's weird. Like, I
Hmm.
don't. I'm like this.
And what about the opposite? Have you noticed any animosity from the trans community towards drag, and had trouble, like, kind of like, if you've been exposed to groups of trans people, did you feel somewhat outcast, I guess?
No, I never feel outcasted or anything, honestly, through my personal experience with everyone who I am friends with who is trans.
Mm. And how about you,
We're all
Patty? Oh, go ahead. Was there something else?
no.
I would say it's a weird um, opposite effect for me at times. Like, I've been in this for a very, very long time, and I think that have you ever seen that scene from the Avengers where the Vision is talking about how, like, sometimes certain things breed um, um, s- certain things breed like animosity or adversity, and then some things. Have you seen that thing? It's a weird, like I didn't notice people being as terrible to trans people in this area until about the Trump years, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. Like if you told me 6 years ago that we'd be in this place that we're in right now, I'd be like, you're crazy. No, people here love trans individuals and everybody here is so free to be themselves. And now, given the current political climate over the last like 4 to 6 years, I would say that that has amped up. In, I mean, just, you know, really amped up a lot. But if you, I mean, 8 years ago, no way. There
Hmm.
were plenty of people walking around, living their lives, nothing the matter. And then we had some kids who wanted to have a drag show last year at the library, and it was, pandemonium. Um, and we've had several, we had a bathroom. Um, we had one of the bathroom uh bills pass like 8 or 10 years ago, something where it went through and everybody was like, yay, and nobody, it wasn't an issue. But then during the Trump administration, it became an issue again, and they wanted to eradicate it. And I mean, we lived for like 3 or 4 years with it not being an issue whatsoever.
Hmm.
And that's what was so strange is we used to live fine here in Arkansas where there weren't that many issues from what I could, from the outside looking in. Um, but I'm sure that there were trans people who were still suffering because this isn't the best state for trans people. This is probably in one of the lower like five. I mean, obviously West Virginia beat us today, but fuck, I mean, it's always a toss up between Arkansas and Arizona and Florida. It's like they're just trying really hard to be as shitty as possible to trans people nowadays. But it didn't used to be like that. And then if you'd said 8 years ago that the trans community would have embraced us as hard as they have in the last like 2 or 3 years, I would have been like, no, it's crazy. Our trans people won't even hardly talk to the drag kids here.
Hmm.
It was like weird because it's this reverse effect. The harder they come at us, the harder we hold on to each other. And I mean, it's great that we're very close now because our trans community and our drag community work really close together. It's not an issue, but it used to be a thing where, and it wasn't, it's not to say that they weren't right in thinking this, but they were always afraid that people equated trans people and drag.
Hmm.
And that's what I was told by one of our community leaders here, is that they didn't want to be confused with drag queens or drag artists and stuff like that. That's why they weren't always wanting to be
Hmm.
as closely bound to us as they are now. So I mean, it's a catch 22. It's a
Hmm.
shitty situation, but it's brought us close together. We're
Yeah.
fighting together. So eh,
Yeah,
eh,
like it or not, we've been lumped together, so we have
eh.
to we have to behave and work together. Yeah, we noticed personally when we were starting the Transverse and starting an organization to support trans folks, we put together a pitch deck and we had a partner that was going to help us with funding and all these great connections because they'd just been through those steps. And under our trans umbrella graphic, where we talked about all the various gender identities, we had drag and cross dressing, and this organization said that we can't work with you if you continue to include those under there. And I understand the I can get the trans thing towards drag because drag is a performance. Drag is
Right.
not a lifestyle. You take it off at the end of the night and whatever. So um and the big problem that trans folks have had is the pushback against the identity, thinking
Mhm.
it's just a choice, it's just something that you're choosing to
Right.
do. And I think that's where the tie in most the average public mind of to drag is like,
Right.
oh, you're just choosing to do this. You can just take it off at the end of the night and don't have to do this. You just keep it behind closed doors and you're fine, sort of a thing. Whereas, for trans people, it's something that it's just who we
Right.
are every day.
Obviously.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so I get where that comes from. I just don't
Yeah.
understand why there's the division. And
Right.
I hadn't really heard too much about animosity from the drag community towards the trans community, but I
No.
assumed that since there was so much from the trans community a lot of times to drag, that there was probably some reciprocation of that. So I'm unfortunately right when I when I asked Pam that. Um, so how has this recent shift about trans folks and about gender identity and gender ideology, I hate that term, but um, have you seen that start to affect the drag performance? Like, um, how many and what type of people show up, and just sort of the amount of opportunities that you have out there. Pam, why don't you start with that one?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, I've definitely seen like more people show up to like an all drag queen show as opposed to an all drag king show. And I feel like it again stems back from the ignorance and from people not understanding where we're coming from when we perform. And I feel like within recent years of like, RuPaul's Drag Race and since like 20, I would say like 18 on, people are still getting into like this new world of drag where it's really everywhere now. Even though we're used to it, like we've been doing this and we're very used to these drag performers, or whether they be drag kings or trans performers or drag queens, the public and the general city isn't. So when they introduce something new to them, like a drag king, they're like, "Wait, what's this?" And then it kind of connects in with like the "Are you trans?" kind of question. It's kind of like, and some, some are, some are not, and that's kind of where it's led to right now,
Mm.
in my opinion.
I don't think it's just you.
Because
I don't. I don't think it's just you. I
like
think that
we're used to
you're
it, but
I think that
other
you're
people
right. I
aren't.
think that we are used to it and that it did start about 2017, 2018. I mean, even though RuPaul's Drag Race had been around since, 2010 or
09.
11 or something,
Yeah.
it took a while to get into the mainstream so hard that like now it's like, your niece's third grade teacher is like, wait, your
Is
aunt's a
that the
drag
drag show?
queen? Tell me where
Right.
her show is, and
Exactly.
like
You go to Times
10
Square and see
years
drag queens on
ago,
on the
that
screen.
that girl may never have thought to go to a drag show because like her friends wouldn't have been like, hey, have you seen the newest RuPaul's, whatever
Right.
season or whatever. And it's made it more accessible. It also has made it where people's ideals of what drag is are much higher than what local artists. So when they come out and they see local artists, they expect this like, they want
These
everybody doing
regalia
death drops and they want everybody in like,
and their hair
you
up to
know,
here and like,
yeah,
yeah.
Hmm.
wigs out to here and costumes that have been, handmade for thousands of dollars. And it's like, okay, girl, well, I made this myself. It cost me about 150. It was the best
Right.
I could do with my time. And this wig, I did buy it. It's not as big as the other girls, but um, so it gives this
Right.
expectation, I
It's
think,
on
to
my head.
people, but it also has made it really accessible. So it's made it where a lot more people want to see it and come out to it, which has also made it a more politicized and then a more uh adverse thing, because when I mean, I don't remember it being this politicized since the 80s,
Hmm.
or the 90s, really, like in the early 90s and the late 80s uh when they were trying to use those terms, like you were saying, cross dress and drag and stuff like that. I mean, that's when they heard it back then, and they just want to demonize things that they don't understand.
Hmm. Well, and for a lot of us trans folks, our experience in the '90s, some of us that are kids of the '80s and '90s and didn't come out
Hmm.
until way late in life, into our '30s and '40s, because of the example that we saw then on Jerry Springer and Maury Povich and things like that, where it was transvestites, and it was always the trap, or you know they
Was
were
it a
they
man
were
or a woman?
yeah, they were sex workers, and they were always portrayed in a negative light, and it was
Right.
very hard to identify with that. And then you saw lots of examples of it societally being something to be laughed at and things like this.
Yeah.
And so it was, going back to what you were saying before, Patty, we hit this period. RuPaul's Drag Race is on, and that's great. We've had some drag movies, we've had some
Hmm.
stuff, and it's doing pretty good. And then all of a sudden, RuPaul, the Drag Race becomes
Hmm.
massive, becomes this cultural phenomenon, and like
Yeah.
everybody's talking about it, and it's just like, okay, we've made it over this hump. We're good. We're at this period where
Hmm.
it's accepted and things are good. And then on the heels of that, trans rights and stuff like that, and trans visibility
Hmm.
started to pick up, and things were looking pretty good for a minute there. Uh,
Yeah, especially shows like Pose and
mhm.
Yeah.
uh what's that other one that was the the one on Netflix that was so popular, the sex lives or something, or the sex education or something. And there were
Hmm.
trans
Okay.
people. There were a lot of like shows on Netflix, and there's a lot of shows like Pose and stuff that have come out that have had trans people on them, and those have been really great, I think, for visibility
Mm.
and stuff as well.
Yeah.
But the same thing, like I said, with the quote that Vision made earlier, I think with visibility comes more adversity and more pushback
Yeah.
from the mainstream people. Hmm. Unfortunately.
Yeah, you definitely get that at first, and it was weird. Same sort of thing can be said about people of color. We elected a black president, and it's like, okay, racism is over in America, yay! And then the pushback was Donald Trump. There's whenever the pendulum swings forward, for some reason it's got to swing back further the other way before it starts to settle in a middle where we
Yeah.
get true equality, and things just are okay. Um,
Here's hoping it's coming soon.
So you both said that you hadn't really experienced anything directly as far as anything very negatively. Let's dive into that. You both are on social media. Have you been receiving hate comments, trolls, and things like that? And if so, have you seen more of it in the last year or two?
I mean, I have like recently someone like reached out to me wanting like they thought I was trans and I explained to them that I wasn't and I was just a drag queen and they got like mad at me for like pretending to be trans and like they threatened to like shoot up my drag shows and like do all this stuff. It was crazy. It was
Yeah.
crazy. So like I had like the county police circling my show. I had security at my show because it felt unsafe and it was very threatening. Luckily, he didn't arrive or anything. Nothing happened. But things like that are tending to happen a lot lately. Like a lot.
That show that was at the library last year was that got canceled was one that I had booked all the entertainment for, and then we had to, of course, cancel it, and that was pretty tough to tell those queens that were, you know, excited about that gig. And I I haven't received as much, but I would say like in the last week since the new bill in Arkansas has been proposed, because we just got this new bill proposed, the SB 43, which
Mm.
is trying to, it's a veiled threat at trying to attack trans people basically, but they're using drag to do it. And so they're trying to say that we can only work in adult entertainment venues and stuff like that. I did go on the news, and somebody did say that there were some trolls on the news thing, but I didn't get on there and like look at any of it because I don't really care what the hillbillies around here have to say about me. But I think that I think that with this SB 43, we're going to get a lot more stuff. And I get some of the people in our community keep saying to me, well, it doesn't, it doesn't affect you because the wording on the language is supposed to be like, if you are not representing the gender of your birth.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, well, it doesn't affect you, girl. You're going to be the hardest working queen in Arkansas or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but I run an organization of drag nuns. And so it affects 4 people that are in my organization. So it affects me because I have to figure out how to safely maneuver this situation with these people and them not get arrested. But technically, everybody, we're drag nuns. Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are drag nuns. So everybody in my order, except for like 3 of us, wear things that aren't necessarily assigned to our gender.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they're going to assign gender to all these clothing articles here in Arkansas, but I guess we're going to start putting labels on all the clothes to know who gets to wear what at some point, because they're now trying to regulate how people dress in Arkansas
Yeah.
with this drag bill, which is just asinine.
Well, yeah, and for those who are watching that aren't familiar with what some of the language is saying, what some of the point of these bills, like Patty was pointing out, it is saying that if you if you do a performance and you're in clothing and makeup or whatever that doesn't match your assigned gender, and there are children present, then that's illegal. It needs to be an adult venue, blah blah blah. So it has to be labeled as an adult venue, and no children are allowed to be there. But it's
But
worded broadly, and it's worded so that if you are a trans person, because they feel that you're dressed in a way that isn't congruent with your sex at birth, then and you're performing in any way, like if you were if Laverne
karaoke.
Cox, yeah, if Laverne Cox was doing the national anthem at a football game, that entire venue is now an adult entertainment venue and can be fined heavily or lose their liquor license and things like that, for having children present at basically a rated X show, and it's just a way of demonizing and eliminating trans folks, and it's done through the attack on drag. That's sort of like the way that
The
they're
veil of
wording it.
attempt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen other ways that they have been trying to take other aspects of the LGBT group, the greater community, and turn them against the trans folks, because trans folks are the smallest, are a small part of that and have less of a voice. And if they can turn the rest of the folks against us, then they can eliminate us and then start picking out the parts of the larger group. So what effect has that had directly on your work? Have you considered changing your costumes or how any of the things that you do in your show to make sure that like no one can say that this is sexual or inappropriate?
Oh no, because I'm a female drag queen, I've gotten more inappropriate just to piss them off.
Mhm.
I started. I mean, the first number that I did, I was in the first show in Arkansas after the bill was proposed, and the first show that happened in Arkansas after the bill was proposed. And the first thing I did was strip down, do nothing but a corset and bloomers. But I mean, that was the point, is that what they're trying to do is say that it's about um drag and drag performances and inappropriateness,
Mhm.
but they're using it as a veiled threat towards my brethren, my coworkers, and my people. So I mean, if I'm the one that they're going to say is immune, then I'm going to be the one to show the fuck out.
Right. Exactly. That's our job.
So that's my job, is to push that envelope.
Mhm.
And that's the point, is that they're going to say, because those people are, I'm the person you should keep your kids away from, people. I'm the one who has an entire outfit that says slut all over it because I love that. And you're telling other people to keep their kids away from the people who I work with, and they're probably way more child friendly than I am,
Mhm.
you know. So I guess you can't arrest me. So let's go. I could
Mm.
I could go to the grocery store in the outfit that says slut in it, and they can't do anything to me. But they can to my old roommate who's trans, who goes to a karaoke bar and wants to sing in a regular outfit. Girl, then I'm wearing the slut outfit to the grocery store in front of your kids. That's how that works.
Uh-oh. Oh, Pam just
She's
blinked
back.
out, but
Sorry.
we got it. What have you thought about the comments about the sexualization in drag and all of that? Because in my experience, there is sort of it is a sexualized, scantily clad,
It
usually
is.
kind of a
That's what we're
thing.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the show To Catch a Predator? Have you ever
Yeah.
seen them catch a drag queen?
No.
That's what I have to say. You've never seen them catch a drag queen, but you have seen them catch a priest,
Hmm.
a rabbi, a youth pastor, a minister, a soccer coach, a hockey coach. I mean, I've never seen them catch a drag queen though.
Hmm. We did a
That's what's weird.
we did a story on a female teacher who forced sex upon I forget how young the kid was. The kid was pretty young, um, to convince him that he was not gay.
Hmm.
So
Like,
the
Wow.
ideology is pretty astounding, isn't it? And the fact that they just assume so much that about who we are that's not true, that they think that it's appropriate for them to force themselves onto somebody to prove to them that they're not what they say they are.
Yeah.
and
It's
it's like no one brought up till you did. So like,
It's like, sweetie, I have never asked once for somebody to bring their children to me.
Mhm.
Okay?
I don't want you
Like
kids in my show. I'm sorry.
I don't even I have like four songs I can do in front of kids. You know what I mean? I got
Same.
like, if you tell me it's a like there's gonna be kids there, I'm like,
I will
because
make a mix to where it's PG.
yeah,
Okay.
I've only got like a couple of things that are radio edit enough or in my Disney repertoire that I can do in front of children. I don't want to have to I don't want to have to work in front of your kids, honestly, but I'll go if that's where the money is, or if like it's a charitable thing that you need me to do. But it's not, I don't know any drag queen who's like, yeah, I love kid shows. I mean, that's the
Right.
most asinine part of most of this, is that we're we're mostly all gay, or you know, gay adjacent. We don't have kids and don't want to have kids, most of us. Some of us do have kids, and that's great for them. But
Hmm.
I don't I mean, I'm in this because I like to wear slutty clothing and dance around and mouth words to other people's music. I mean, I'm not here to conform to like a whole bunch of family show kind of needs. I will do them every once in a while. It's not like I'm completely opposed, but I think that the ideal that these people think that we're all just vying to get near their kids is so stupid. Like
Yeah, it's
most
like
of us
so
don't
far
want to
from
go
what the
near your
actual
kids,
truth
boo
is.
boo.
Well, I wonder if that's sort of part of it, like you said, that's not the point of drag, that's not the focus. So when a show allows all ages attendance, there as opposed to what Republicans are saying right now, a bunch of these lawmakers that and people like Matt Walsh, that these are targeting children and the purpose is to make them gay or trans or to somehow indoctrinate them into the ideology. It's so ironic to hear that the perspective is usually like, we kind of don't want them there.
Yeah, like I will, do that, but like that's not why I do drag.
Uh-huh.
No,
That makes sense. You know what I mean? Like I do drag because I love the late night lore of it all. I love
exactly.
that. But like I don't do drag to read to kids.
No.
I will.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
we
And
don't.
like
We're not
not
like
to say that
dying to
kids
do
aren't
that.
welcome. I host a drag brunch that's all ages. It's literally in thousand, right? It's but like we only will alter the numbers if there is at least 5 kids present. And sometimes the parents don't care at all. Sometimes the parents are like, I don't care if you cuss. I don't care. And like that's what I like the most because then it kind of brings a genuine performance that they might be inspired by.
Well, and the thing that's been really
That's
confusing about all this is
Disney or not.
how much they're trying to attack the parents and remove the parents' right to make that decision and bring kids to a show because they're focusing on this indoctrination fear and this buzzword and not paying attention to the fact that if a parent takes a child to something like this, it's the first of all, the responsibility is on the parent, and
Yeah.
second, the parent has the opportunity to talk to the kid afterwards and to explain what was going on and what they saw and to frame it correctly and say all of the things about this, and I just think it's so hypocritical that the party that says they're for the rights of the family and the rights of the parents in talking about the school bills dealing with trans folks, but then they're trying to take away that sort of thing and saying that it's inappropriate for parents to take their kids to this, so we're going to make it illegal.
And like, is that inappropriate for them to watch Mrs. Doubtfire or Medea
Mm-hmm.
or
Oh,
like? So what's the
here
difference? Like
here in Arkansas on a Friday night, you can take your kids to Twin Peaks, where it's
see,
lingerie night. It's lingerie night. I've seen 7-year-olds where I'm there trying to lust after ladies and nothing but scantily clad drawers and what is it, the garter belts and stuff, and they are literally running around serving you fries and burgers that are mediocre in thongs and garters, and there are 7-year-old and 8-year-olds going to eat with their dads, and it's
yeah,
okay
like
to
at Hooters and
indoctrinate them
stuff.
into that kind of culture, but you don't want a person to read a book to them. Now there's some Arkansas bullshit for you right there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't read to
Yeah,
my kid, but by God, he can go and like lust after this lady with like luscious hips in black
yeah, at the Hooters,
yeah, in black lingerie. It's all black
girl.
lingerie on Friday nights at Twin Peaks. And you can
I
take your
love that.
kids. Don't you?
Work,
I mean,
work.
I get my kicks out of it, but I'm old enough to go in my mind.
That's the thing. Yeah.
In my mind, I'm old enough to go. Now, last year we did a charity drag show for Best Friends Animal Shelter, and I showed up and I was like, whoa, there are a lot of kids here. Whoa. There are a F ton of children here, more than I am used to. And they were everywhere. They were running around like crazy. They were running around us while we were doing numbers. And eventually they ended up all on stage being backup dancers. They were just all up there on the stage, like dancing to every single song we did. And they knew all the words. They knew every single word. They were up there dancing and carrying on behind us. Are you going to arrest the kids for being little backup dancers, being little accomplices? I mean, where are they going to draw the lines? Are they going to arrest people's parents and like take kids off to CPS because they're going to drag shows
Mm-hmm.
and they think that this is where they need to spend their money and not
Yeah,
on
it's
the rural
weird.
food deserts in Arkansas, not on the education system that's kind of fucked right now, not on the infrastructure, not on roads. We're going to spend it on arresting and incarcerating parents
Mm-hmm.
for taking their kids to entertain them for a couple of hours.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, you can just say, look at TV. Definitely look at movies. And a parent can take a child to an R-rated movie. That
Mm-hmm.
is up to them. They can do that. That would
Mm-hmm.
have sex and swearing and violence and that sort of thing is fine. And yeah, and then also you've got a drag book reading for children at a library, and you know the drag person performer that as far as I've seen, they're not like scantily clad. They're pretty well dressed up, pretty appropriately dressed. And what you see is people like the Proud Boys coming in and yelling and threatening violence in front of the kids, and somehow that is appropriate and an
How?
appropriate response.
Right. It's like
How?
I can't.
How is teaching them violence and that gun toting and violent rhetoric is okay when they're just there to see somebody with a lot of makeup?
Uh-oh. We lost Patty in the middle of a good thought. Oh, here she comes. Sorry, we lost you for
Yeah.
a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was literally saying I just don't understand how they can preach and teach violence in front of children like that when those kids are just there to see somebody in extra makeup and some brightly colored shiny outfit. And you're I mean, we used to have this argument on the Democratic side about violence and video games and stuff of this nature. And Republicans used to push back that, like, well, it was up to the parents. It's up to
Mm-hmm.
the parents. It's up to the parents because the parents buy the video games. The parents control what the kids watch on TV, and it's up to the parents. But now you're saying it's not up to the parents
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to drag, when
Well,
it
that
comes to
and
knowing their own gender identity. Excuse me?
they'll in the same. That's a great example. They'll say in that example that seeing the violence doesn't trigger the violence. That doesn't trigger violent behavior in them. Like they won't. Like it doesn't make them violent.
So how does seeing gay people make you gay?
Right.
Wasn't that how you catch it? Either seeing
Well,
or touching a gay person.
if you get near one or see one,
Mm-hmm.
well then shouldn't you turn into some gun-toting like post-apocalyptic person, like after playing a couple of rounds of World of Warcraft or
Or
whatever it
Call of
is,
Duty or
or
something.
Call of Duty, or what's it, Fallout or whatever it is, if
Mm-hmm.
you play that one.
Girl.
I mean, like if you play those games, aren't you going to become like some sort of like zombie
Product of that.
apocalyptic hunter of other people and stuff? Like shouldn't you, because you're
It
watching it
doesn't.
constantly. It doesn't compute. Exactly, Pam. It doesn't compute because when we use this argument against violent video games, they did not accept that as a valid argument. But now that it's drag in front of their children, we're all going to turn them homo?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Well, and then they've got the rhetoric that's out there, and we're saying the things that you're saying, the violent rhetoric that you're saying, the things you're calling for, and all of that, it has an effect, and it's hurting people. It's going to cause trans people to get attacked and to be killed and things like that. And they swear up and down that the things that we say has no effect on people. We can't be held responsible because it's not
Right.
possible for it to have an effect. And it's just like,
Right.
yeah, it's more of that hypocrisy. But in this
Right.
case, where we're passionate about this and we think this thing is wrong, we're going to say that all of a sudden everybody is super susceptible to falling prey to this horrible ideology.
So if like just saying things is not gonna, are you still there?
Yes, and we can still hear you. So
Okay. Okay. But just like you were saying, the rhetoric of what they're trying to use, if that didn't, if that's not gonna, you know, do anything, if their violent talk is not gonna do anything, then I guess, it's, is it the same concept as like all those people who didn't show up to the Capitol when the orange orangutan told them, to do
Do it.
so? I mean, when you tell those people to show up to that shit, they're crazy, and they do.
mm-hmm.
Monkey see,
If
monkey
you,
do.
yeah, I mean, they're really, it's really a scary time. Honestly, it's just a really scary time because those people are so easily controlled by one another. The QAnons and the Proud Boys and all those guys. I mean, they're all collectively sharing the same penis and brain, and it's
And they're
really
really sharing the same.
hard.
They're all gay.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, some
Low
of them
key.
are definitely, they have to. I mean, there's statistically there has to be at least 10% of them as
Right.
closet cases.
Mm-hmm.
They're closet cases who are self-loathing and dealing with their own identity crisis and unable to do that in a healthy way, which would be to go to therapy or to just go ahead and join the ranks, sweetie. We're always open.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Right.
like 7-Eleven or Waffle House. We're always here. We're open, and we'll fix your cup of coffee if you come on in. Um, but they just want to fight and be um, divisive. And then some of those people are just crazy. They're on the other side. Just like we have, nutters in our corner. We have crazies. They have crazies. And we have to worry about theirs a
Mm-hmm.
lot more than we have to worry about ours.
And
Yeah.
we're crazy.
I mean, we're crazy.
We never
But
claimed we weren't. We never claimed we weren't.
we've
There wasn't a
never
fair
said
bit of
we
crazy
weren't.
involved.
That's right. Though we'll be the first to tell you.
Mm-hmm. Just yeah, it's so much. I love the examples you bring forth of the video games and of course Hooters, which is always a phenomenal example, and the the hypocrisy of saying the things that they say don't have an effect, as well as claiming that they're for the rights of the parents to make the decisions for their kids, and then when parents make decisions for their kids, now suddenly it is egregious and horrible. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that drag story hour or all ages drag shows exist is somehow evil, and the parents don't have the power to make the decision, and for themselves, for their families, and somehow it's the responsibility of armed terrorists to show up and protest these things to get them shut down so that they're not happening. It's not the responsibility of the parents, and it's not the right of the parents to make that decision.
Right. But they want the rights of the parents for every other situation.
Unless
For every
they're
other
queer.
situation except for the parents being able to choose, or the parents being able to help the child with their gender identity if they're struggling with it, or the parent's choice to let them go to a drag show, or the parent's choice to let them watch, you know, an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race. I mean, I wouldn't let them watch Untucked, but I'd let them
Right.
watch an episode. I'd let them watch an episode of The Race. You just can't watch
Right.
Untucked because they're raunchy in there.
Wasn't familiar.
They be cussing stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they're cussing on. They cuss on every channel, on everything on Netflix.
Right.
There's cussing on everything on Netflix. You can't tell me that cussing is where you draw the line as a parent, because
Right. I have
Lord,
heard these
it's
kids.
everywhere these days. You can't control that. It
Mhm.
says "bitch please" on like shirts at Walmart. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe it has an asterisk in the middle of the ICH, but
But
you
they
know
get
what
it.
it's supposed to say.
Hmm. Yeah, the
The
kid.
idea that it would be the cussing that would be the line where the line draws is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm sure the kids know a lot more than probably many of these parents and politicians do about sex and swearing and violence and all of those things.
Yeah.
Hell, if I want to know what all the new terms are for the uh, sexual things, you got to look to somebody who's like fresh out of
On
high
TikTok.
school, right?
Yeah.
So I'm one of those old queens, baby. If I want to keep up, I got to ask the kids.
Hmm.
And by kids, I mean somebody over 18. I'm not talking to anybody under 18.
Right.
So, as we wrap up here, what is next for y'all? What is coming? Is anything changing for you? And have you noticed any less opportunity for you to do drag in your local area?
I For me, drag's always changing. I'm always working to produce the next thing, whether it be a charity fund, a show, whatever it is. I I hate saying this because like I am a cis white male, but like I do see a lot of like I'm having to reach out more as opposed to them reaching out to me, and I kind of like that because I can decide who I want to work with, and I can help provide platforms for other people who don't have as many as X, Y, or Z do. So that's always on my mind, is trying to showcase people's talents wherever they may be for my shows.
Um, in my neck of the woods, it's like a going out of business sale right now. So we're doing as many shows as we can possibly do, I think. Um, because of the bill and because of everybody wanting to learn and do as much as possible right now for our community, it's been it's a curse and a blessing. Obviously, we're staring down the barrel of a loaded gun, but at the same time, it's kind of like a shotgun wedding thing where everybody's wanting to like have some drag classes, everybody's wanting to like learn how to get in drag so that we can all go to protests together in drag, and everybody's wanting to learn how to where the next shows are so they can go to them and be there to support us. Our first shows right out of the gate after the bill was proposed were very well attended, and people were very generous. So right now the work is good, and things are people are being very supportive, but we're also staring down the barrel of a loaded shotgun. So it's just, you never know. It's tomorrow they could vote on the bill and decide that everything is illegal by April or May, but hopefully not. And we have a really very active ACLU here in Arkansas. So hopefully they can do something to help us out. They are literally working round the clock and like crackheads because every time we blink, now that Quasimodo is in office, We have no offense to her or whatever. Well, kind of fuck her. But since Quasimodo's in office now, you know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. Um, she's really done some stupid shit in the last few days, and her first act was just to take out the word Latin X from all the government documents. Jesus, like that was the first thing she needed to do. But um, it's it's going to be an interesting year here in Arkansas. Keep up with us. We're it may be drag with shotguns. You never know. I mean, we may be performing. Yeah, you may be performing with loaded pistols from now on, just to protect yourself while in the club. So
Is
I've already had a couple of friends offer to strap me if I need to. So
yeah, is that the next thing instead of drag story
strap
hours?
drag queens, yes.
Drag, shooting
Performing with your
lessons.
holster.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. It's a conceal and carry drag queens. Yes, I think that's going to
That's
be
a
it.
drag queen name, Conceal and Carry, honey.
Yes, that's what I think it's going to be. We're going to name the next drag queen to come to the stage. Conceal and carry, or carry and conceal. That's her name.
Right.
Carry and carry
Uh-huh.
and conceal. That's her name.
There it
Yeah,
is.
that's it.
There you go.
There you go. Yes.
That's
Trademark that quick.
I'm gonna put that out there. Yeah, I'm gonna put that out there in the universe. I hope that there's an Arkansas queen who comes out with that name soon.
Well, we've covered a lot of different things. Like I said at the start, I didn't have a ton of time to get my questions done, and my partner bowed out before we had a chance to kind of finalize things. So, keeping things pretty short tonight, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about anything that you'd like to, anything that we didn't cover, and then after that, we'll give you a chance to promote anything that you'd like to.
Okay.
Pam, is there anything that
I
you?
don't really have much right now. No.
Mm-hmm.
I if you're in the Arkansas area and you want to come out, I host a monthly show at Kincaid's. I'm also on the cast of C4, so I'm there once a month. And I am a rotating co-host at the Toasted Drag Brunch here in Fayetteville at Wake and Bake. So if you're ever in the Fayetteville area, look me up. I'm Lady Kakes Monroe, and I would love to see you at any of my shows.
Awesome. And what about you, Pam? What do you have coming up that you can promote?
For shows, I do run a brunch here in the Thousand Oaks kind of area of SoCal. It's called the Brunch Brats. We're doing a Rocky Horror Picture Show. We're doing a disco brunch and generations brunch coming up all throughout the year. So follow me, Pam Cakes with the Z at the end, no S. I'll block you if you put an S. I swear to God. But yeah, come see me at one of my brunch shows.
Nice.
That's so funny. I'm Cakes with a K.
I love it.
With the S, but with the K. I just love
I
that
have an S, but I started with a K.
I love that the two folks that showed up tonight had cakes in their drag names.
I know, I love
So
it.
you mentioned
Me too.
Rocky Horror Picture Show, and that reminds me of a question we got earlier in the show after you talked about your initial experience in Rocky Horror. What character did you play, or which character did you like the most?
I am the Trixie, so I open the show.
Mm.
Because mostly I am producing and hosting the show, so I have to work behind the scenes with the other characters.
Nice.
My favorite character though is Magenta of the whole show.
Awesome.
I love her
Yes.
so much.
All right. Well, thank you both so much for coming and sharing your experience and kind of getting us caught up on what's going on out there from your perspective. I really appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank
for having
you.
me.
Thank you for having me.
And this ended up being a little bit light on a couple of things, with the guests and hosts and questions. So we'll be sure to do this again. I know Pam has already offered to help connect us through to some other folks around at least the area, hopefully around the country, because I'd like to get a good representation
Yeah,
of different perspectives, because we've got a lot of different stuff going on in a lot of different states. There's a ton of copycats with these laws and things like that, but there's still different perspectives depending on which different area you're in. So we want to make sure we cover that. Everybody in chat, thank you so much. Make sure you follow these wonderful folks and go out and support a local drag show. And yeah,
tip your queens, tip your kings, tip your performers.
Please.
there you go. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. I love you and appreciate you. And we'll be talking soon.
Bye,
Thank you.
Transverse.
Much love.